him to answer the question that we are going to give out right now. And we're not going to really give a question out, but okay. Thank you all for being here today, and it's our pleasure to represent the private sector side. As many of you know, I'm George Gentile. I'm president and senior partner of Gentile Glass Holloway O'Mahony & Associates. And while Harvey Boyer is here, thinks our name is a law firm. We're not. We're landscape architects, planners, urban designers. I grew up here in Palm Beach County, went all through school here. I worked for Palm Beach County, as many people in my office have. I'm a fellow of the American Society of Landscape Architects and have been practicing here since 1977. And I'm only 27 years old, I tell them. So what I'd like to first do is introduce our esteemed panel that are involved in the private sector end. And of course, as you know, we've been asked, the question is what the market is demanding of us as private sector planners and as land use attorneys and as developers. We have a developer here. So I want you to hang on because I know there's a lot of government planners in here. And so you're going to hear some things that might excite you and you might throw papers at us or whatever. So, our first speaker that's going to be up is Ken Tuma. Ken Tuma is principal of Urban Design Kilday Studios, which is a land planning and landscape architecture firm in West Palm. Ken has done a tremendous job of bringing that firm along from the merger of Kerry Kilday's firm. I actually was the first landscape architect that worked with Urban Design Studio when they were actually Hank Skokowski, who passed away, sat next to me at Palm Beach County. We actually shared a government grade desk together for a long time. So Ken is unfortunately a graduate of Ohio State University, and you can tell because I'm a Gator. And he has a BS degree in civil engineering and also BS in agronomy with a business minor. And prior to becoming the managing principal of Urban Design, he worked with several development companies, including Toll Brothers, right? WCI at the time, and Taylor Windrow Communities. So Ken will be talking a little bit about his stuff in a minute.
Can I interrupt George for a second? And George also did one very important thing in my life. No. George, when Wendy and I got married, we got married by a Catholic priest outside the church. And if you're Catholic, you're not allowed to get married outside the church. So George actually was the notary and actually did our vows.
And I'm available if anybody here needs it. The next speaker that we have at the far end is Tony Colombo, who's Director of Land Acquisitions from Pulte de Vasta in the Southeast Florida region. Tony's recognizable, has been working with acquisitions in 5-county South area region. He's a graduate of Barry University with a master's degree in business administration, 30 years career in total of over 20,000 lots. Mostly recently 973 in the Palm Beach County called The Fields. He's married to his wife Shirley and has 3 children. And we're glad to have him here to give us the development perspective. And then our last speaker, of course, everyone knows, is Harvey Boyer. He's a land use lawyer with Schutz & Bowen and has been a former university professor. He's 5th generation here in Palm Beach County and served years as chairman of the Historical Society of Palm Beach County. He served as the director of the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce of the Palm Beaches and is presently a director on the Business Development Board. He's, believe it or not, a former underwater archaeologist. You might want to talk to him about that later. He's, of course, the author of some best-selling, award-winning children's books. My partner just bought 2 sets, and we're glad of that. And so we're glad to have Hari talk to us a little bit about the legal and land use perspective. Just a few comments. What we've been hearing this morning is very interesting in regards to our opening speaker, Dr. Murray, indicating the real trend, the real activities are the cost of development and the economy, housing, transportation, all being an important aspect of where we go from here. Several trends that we're seeing around the country that have been noticed here slightly are that the millennium population that's coming in now are looking for a different type of housing environment, a different living environment. They're looking for more social interaction, more activity centers. They're going towards the urban areas. We are hearing that. We're also seeing an upsurge also in two other areas. One is multi-generational housing because our kids, because of the recession, or what we now call the Great Recession, has made it very difficult for them to find jobs, to be placed in the professions that they probably went through school on, and they're still living at home. And then we're also seeing a cultural shift here that's allowing or bringing a lot of families that have multi-generational living quarters where you have everybody from the grandparents to the grandkids living in a unit or in a housing market. So we have to look at that. We also heard Raphael indicate, which is also another trend in the bigger cities, but I think eventually will show up here because of the younger generation coming in from us baby boomers that are on our way out, and that is the micro units, and getting smaller units and living in more dense communities that are near their jobs, near their places of entertainment, and near the commercial areas. And so the bigger picture is that what many of you are, how many people are here from public sector? Raise your hand. Very, very much. Okay, so that's what I thought. So what you all need to start thinking about is that after we came out of this disastrous Great Recession, which actually, right on target, 2009, we hit the bottom. In Palm Beach County, there was 3 areas of the housing market that sustained higher levels of building permits per value. And that was Palm Beach County, because they have the largest land area still in our whole county area that is unincorporated. But there was 2 other areas that we saw, and that was the town of Jupiter and the city of Palm Beach Gardens. Because they basically were working towards getting a job market established, one in the bioscience sector, particularly in the town of Jupiter. And then the other one was in the Palm Beach Gardens area, which was really bioscience, but also a very general movement toward bringing in corporate industries into that area. So their valuation and permits stayed up there. So it shows you that people follow the jobs, and that's what will sustain the economic base and make this a sustainable living environment. So those are important items to keep in mind. You as government planners need to think about antiquated regulations that you have that make it difficult for us to be creative. You need to think about density not being the bad guy, but balancing it correctly with the development. And mixed use, you need to think about what is a successful mixed use project. Mixed use means you need to have a living environment that everybody participates in, including residential, commercial, entertainment, living, and social activities, recreation. So those are very, very important factors. And you, those of you, many of you are young, coming into this profession and working in government, need to keep that in mind. So With that, I'm going to start with Mr. Tuma, and we're going to let him go ahead and take the stage.
Well, thank you, and good morning, everybody. And George, what I'm going to say, some of the things you might not like to hear, but I really spent some time thinking about kind of the ramifications that we get from our developer clients on a regular basis and what they feel about things and how they move forward. And Tony and Harvey, feel free to jump in. I know, Tony, you will, when the time is correct. For those of you who know Tony, he is, how should we say, always gives his opinion. Okay, economic development. I appreciate Dr. Murray's concept. That was very good for him to mention economic development, because in our world, and what I do and what we do for a living, the capital markets really decide on what happens. While we all think we have these great design concepts, but the truth is, the capital markets decide where we go. So just kind of frame of reference, the beginning of the Great Recession, or the end of the Great Recession as we started. First public hearing I went to in a year was up in Palm Beach Gardens. It was for apartments. That was back in 2011 or 2012. So the apartment cycle was the first thing where you saw money getting placed, and that's where you see the developments going into. The next thing that you saw were charter schools. For those of you who are around, know charter schools were the next big thing. The money went to charter schools, and then it went to assisted living. So the assisted living facilities are being reinvested in. You know, back in 1988, 1989, they were hot. And then, of course, home building is back again, primarily in the horizontal style home building, not vertical. Why is that? It's pretty simple. You can build a house for $80 to $90 a square foot horizontally, but if you go up, it starts at $200 a square foot. So for those of you who think that you're going to get workforce housing in high-rise, the economics don't make any sense. It just doesn't work at $200 a square foot. The third thing I wanted to go through, and then we noticed retail, like the Palm Beach outlets really took off, and all those other retail projects. So that's kind of things that have kind of flowed through for the last couple of years. On land supply, that was a really good thing, and I know Patrick put up that 4,400 acres. The 10,000 acres out in the western part of Palm Beach County, I don't see that being built anytime in the near future, but certainly one day potentially. So you've got 4,400 acres, or you got golf courses, old malls, all those things. I mean, I know we've done a couple of golf course conversions in the area, and one or two more coming. I saw Ms. Quack out there. So there are some golf course conversions coming in the area. So you're seeing that, and that really is a function of cost of land. And Tony, what are the two things that really drive the cost of housing? Looks like me. Oh, thank you. The cost of housing is pretty simple. From what it really costs, it's what Tony buys land for a living. That's what he does. So that's the first component, is land. It's not how much it costs to build a house, because he's going to build it. He works for Pulte, Toll, and they're all going to build their house within 5% of each other. The 5% of the concrete, the wood, and everything required to build a house. The second part is absorption, and I'll let him get into that. But how many houses per year he builds? Those are really the two controlling factors of home construction. And then finally, workforce housing. Tony, I'm sure will have a lot of thoughts on that. So Harvey, it's really a supply and demand issue. No matter what we do, no matter how you do it, there's not going to be enough workforce housing. That 4,500 acres of land that Patrick identified, the price just keeps going up every day. And then finally, transportation. I'll come back to that, but I'll let somebody else speak for a little bit.
Good morning. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I'm going to let Ken and Tony talk more about the suburban development. Let me instead talk about urban development. I do quite a bit of work in the urban area, and we see a different housing type than these two gentlemen on either side we will talk about. We've seen a lot of apartments. My prediction is we've maybe seen too many apartments. It'd be a good time for someone to begin doing condos again, should the capital markets begin to finance those. Let's talk about micro units. I actually represent someone who I think is trying the first micro unit project in the county. That's investor Jeff Green, and it's only a couple of blocks from where we're seated. It is due east of the West Palm Beach Police Department, and I think the city, I'm looking at Rick Green in the back, is open to the idea But we do need to make some code changes, and this is probably a good time to discuss it with so many public sector people in the room. If this is something that we embrace as a matter of policy, which I think we probably do after hearing the net cost of suburban development and where the jobs and the millennials will be, we need to find a regulatory scheme that allows it. So just by way of example, and this is not throwing the city under the bus, because actually West Palm Beach is an incredibly cooperative, forward-thinking group, but we're dealing with codes that never contemplated micro units. So for example, in West Palm Beach, we have density caps. We don't in the downtown master plan area, but we do elsewhere. We have minimum square footage of units, and I forgot what it is in West Palm, but call it 600 square feet, and these will be less than 600 square feet. We also have parking ratios in most cities. Actually, the West Palm Beach Downtown Master Plan discourages cars in parking, but most regulatory schemes require a certain number of parking spaces. All those three easy examples discourage the micro-unit concept. So I would encourage all of you, should you work in a municipality where you think micro-units make sense, which is not a lot of the county, but William Lake Worth would be a good location, certainly West Palm. Maybe you ought to get on the front end of this and begin to create a zoning category for these, rather than a developer like Jeff Green coming in and saying, I want to try this idea, don't know if it will work, I'm willing to risk my own money to try it, and we throw up a dozen regulatory hurdles in front of them, they're not going to try it. So if, as a matter of policy, elected officials find this to be a good idea, why don't we be proactive and try to create an environment in which they can be created? The only other thought that I wanted to share is that we're facing a downturn, I believe, giving you a private sector view. And I know that because my phone didn't stop ringing for about 3 years, and now it rings less. And I'm in a bellwether position for the industry. When people don't call planning and zoning lawyers as often, that means that we're cooling down, and Ken's firm, George's firm, may be experiencing the same thing. I don't think it will be a crash, but I think we're going to cool down. What would be helpful from the public sector is to get as many of these projects financed as possible. Not approved, because approved doesn't get it built. But actually get the construction loan closed and a shovel in the ground. Because once you close a construction loan, they're going to build a project. Even if we hit a recession, natural disaster, money has been funded, project will be built. And that's important for all of the public sector, because many of these projects we find to be very useful. We look forward to the tax increment, the social value. So thank you for your assistance in getting them approved. The next big hurdle I would encourage over the next 6 months or so is let's try to get these all the way through a building department process, get them a building permit so their loan will close and these projects are under construction. I'm also delighted to try to address suburban questions, but I live in the downtown, and like Raphael, I've lived in a downtown historic neighborhood for, I don't know, 18 years, and I enjoy the walkability. I enjoy the intellectual challenge of fitting large building, more density, a lot of code changes into a smaller piece of real estate. So my intellectual interest is in the urban core. So now we're going to shift gears back to Tony, who's going to talk about more suburban, traditional, horizontal development.
Let me start with the first thing I hate most in life is what you have me doing right now. I thought I was coming to watch this until Ken actually told me I was invited to speak. I texted my wife this morning to see if she could reschedule my dentist appointment back on for today. She's using the same joke in New York right now because she's speaking to a banking convention. My wife's a bankruptcy lawyer, so when my business is doing well, she's a little slow, and when our business wasn't doing so well, she was doing unbelievable. No, I see why you work on weekends. acquisition director. And really what it is land manufacturer. My job in I'll call it, I'm not allowed to go into Dane County just because of the complexity, even though I grew up there, and I probably understand that market as well as any of the other 5 that I'm responsible for. But when I look at what I do is how do I find affordable housing, and I'm talking about housing that our kids can afford to move into and neighborhoods that they would want to live in. To my credit right now, I have 4 golf courses under contract that are being converted to residential housing. And we just, with Ken's help, we just were able to process Gulfstream Polo fields for 973 units off of Lake Road in Palm Beach County. The complexity. Well, the first thing is, I know there's a few people in this room that have had the pleasure of interacting with me. You know I'm passionate about my job. If I haven't brought my traveling road show to your city, if you have land, I'm on my way. That being said, my number 1 job in land manufacturing is figuring out a way to make money for my parent company. I'm a capitalist. If I can't make a profit with the deal, I have no business putting the land under contract and taking it through the process. When I first started, my first job in the Builders Association was to learn about something called impact fees. They weren't around when I started. Today, my impact fees in most municipalities are in the range of $15,000 to $20,000, and then there's the hidden impact fees. You know, if I build water and sewer, I have to pay you the privilege to give it to you. And you know, I could probably do a stand-up comedy routine on my interactions over my 30-year career with government. But what I've learned is there are people in government that actually want to see us succeed. And I work very hard at finding you and searching you out for help. I can't do my job. My consultants, there's 2 of them at the table. We spend a lot of money with your firm as well.
Thank you.
Government has made the process of entitlement land, I'm just drifting. You know, it's like hiring a legal team to fight for your rights. And we come in and we have engineers and we have planners and Gulfstream Polo, by the way, pre-acquisition cost, entitling that site, 973 units, was $1.9 million to get 973 units approved.
That's terrible. That planning fee must have been a lot.
Well, you do have your children in private schools.
I go to a Catholic school, not a super private school.
So, and I say that because it's you have, I sometimes feel like when I show up, I'm like a villain. So I do wear black a lot, just so I fit the role. And really all I'm trying to do is give to my children the same thing that my parents gave to me. An ability to grow up in Southeast Florida. I love it. My uncle played for the University of Miami. I've been a University of Miami fan since I was 4 years old, which I won't tell you when that was, but I can tell you they weren't good back then. I can tell you that I went to the Dolphins when they weren't very good, where I used to ride a bus with a couple of milk cartons, got to actually get into the stadium. So as we've become, and I think that I can remember at one point in time when we had 1 million people in the Tri-County area. We now have 7.5 million people here. You as government, so that I can cater to my clientele, have to help me. You have to help me with speed, because the people that own the land don't believe me when I say, oh, it's going to take between 12 and 18 months to entitle a site. And they think I'm nuts. And then I, with the help of your firm, we figure out how to get extensions and stuff built into our contract so we may be able to make it through the process. And I can tell you, I really do understand all your processes. And I can tell you that we hire the best people to get through. $250,000 house in Palm Beach County. However, my clients, they're going to St. Lucie County and driving in because I can deliver that product and make a profit there. Here, my base price point housing starts at $350,000, and I get to give. I think it's about 5% of my units in the county have to be workforce housing, and there's all kinds of rules and regulations associated with it, and it becomes complex, but we work through it, or it's another tax. Anyway, I'm running all over the board. I apologize. Yeah.
Just a couple of questions, and then well, yeah. I just want.
Just want Tony, so you said a difference between 250,000 in St. Lucie and 350,000. The delta's in the land basis?
The delta's in the land basis and the cost to get the entitlement side. It's a hidden cost that you've seen a lot of developers not make it in our Tri-County area, but it's those, and I don't want to call them hidden costs, but whether it's the cost of Palm Beach County's buffer requirements that are probably twice what it is in any other municipality. You don't see that, but if you built here, you know it, you put it in your numbers. Or it's, I'll stop.
No, I just want to ask the panel, I know Harvey, you were more in the urban area, but Tony and.
Yeah, here it is, George.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Now you hear me, Emily? You're always telling me that, Emily. Okay. I want to ask the question of where do you see the trends going in the housing type? I know that, Tony, you do mostly horizontal. Harvey, you're dealing with probably everything in the land use end. And Ken, you're also working in planning projects and everything. Are we seeing a reduction in the housing sizes? Are we seeing a reduction in the land or the lot size per home? Are we seeing any vertical desire? Just throw that out.
I'll go first. I mean, I look at planning as there's a plan for every particular place. There's not one particular form of planning. There's not a spot where one thing works, another thing works somewhere else. You have to find the right spot for everything. So, yes, there are smaller units coming in the apartments. There's no doubt about that for the people who are millennials. But I also tell you that people still want to live in a subdivision. I see that on a regular basis. People move out of, let's just say, downtown West Palm Beach. I watch it happen in our office. They have kids. They want to move somewhere else where better schools are. It's just the truth. And that's what happens. That happens on a regular basis. So we see that. We're also seeing some horizontal condo buildings coming out of the ground, but they're all very, very expensive because of the cost to build and also the cost of land associated with it.
I agree. I agree with everything Ken just said. I don't know that there's any one trend. We all demand a different housing type. We like different geography, price points, different stages of our life.